Cool. So, shall we? I don't know where to start. Shall we start with? I'll ask you what kind of gave you the inspiration of the script. Why did you write it first of all?
So writing it originally was conceived as one initial idea, sort of following the character through like a high school setting and stuff like that. So it's almost looking at adolescence, growing up, and basically what it is to grow up as a dancer and how much pressure is put on you from your teachers, from other peers, and from industry standards, because there's a lot of pressure that is put on you for a lot of things. Showed the script to lovely Jean, and you gave your critiques on it.
Because originally it was all your idea,
yeah.
It was your script, and then you sent me the script. Oh, could you have a look, read through? So it was like, and I was like, I do have some notes. If I can do some notes for us. Then we started then talking about ideas and collaboration.
And then I just asked you, collaborate and work on it. Yeah.
I really like the story and like everything behind it. I was like, definitely, yeah.
And then it's evolved into this sort of piece that requires minimal dialogue, very much movement heavy, focus and stuff like that. So it's very much a visual piece that we want to capture so much imagination with. So.
Because they sent me some videos of the rehearsals that you've had so far with the dancers,
yes.
And there's like a huge team of dancers. It's like this, yeah. The studio was like about the size of this room, and it was filled with dancers. So if you can imagine kind of that visual, it was quite amazing to see it. That was very different, but yeah. And what drew you to the script then? If you
I think as well, I love like the idea of like you said, focusing on like going through like the adolescence, because everyone kind of has that things can relate to a sense of like wanting to do something and someone saying no you can't, or that adolescence of trying to find who you are and what you can in that journey of self-discovery. So I think even though it's about dance, there's very much other aspects I think people can like relate to themselves in some way. And I thought that was really interesting, as well as it being like really visual as well, because you don't get that with a lot of like film scripts. I mean they're quite dialogue heavy, so I think being like really visual and minimal dialogue, I think that was really interesting to wanting to work on and explore that.
So Tom, why did you choose it?
Just so you would have this, technical joy all together. Well, I mean, I'm a screenwriter and a producer by trade, so I read a lot of scripts. So I was saying to the guys, this is the very last one. Out of all of the ones that were entered, this was the very last one. And I remember reading it, and well, firstly, it had been laid out properly, so they had spent the time to actually bother to lay out the script properly. So, but that makes a difference because there were lots that weren't, and I think if it's a script competition, then those things count, and it's just good practice. So I was pleased about that. I loved I was a teacher before I was a screenwriter, so I really liked the fact that I felt that I recognised a bit of the story. It connected a little bit to me in terms of working with younger people that were really into performing arts, and that is a world, isn't it? Performing arts is a world, and I think that it was put across in a really interesting way. And I just loved the ending. I just loved it. Like, who doesn't like that kind of ending where they just go and dance in the park? I just thought it was really visual. But it's little things like that, filmmaking and writing and producing and all that stuff. People, it's not that hard. It's just great stories that everyone can connect with, and everyone can connect with that. There's no doubt in my mind that no one's watching that going, yeah, I don't get that end. Well, you don't need to. It's just dancing. It's dancing in the park. That's fine. And there is a park outside, so you're more than welcome to go to.
Oh, we should have gone out and
could have done it.
Too cold to everything.
Director there, right? Yeah, too cold, too wet, too expensive. So that's why, and I think I read the script, read it once, and then I came back to it a few days later, and it still stuck out. And then, choosing all the scripts it's never easy, but it was. It just had a lovely feel, and it was very visual, and I think that was something that spoke to me as well. So I loved it. I really enjoyed it, and I knew from perhaps the second reading that it was going to be definitely within the top 5. And then so I just plugged for it. So, because I think it was we did this is the Made in Essex. What was it called? The Essex Film Collective, like top.
Yeah, so the Made in Essex, so it's the top Essex script, but then you're also the third.
Yeah,
so right. Whoever was the top ranking Essex.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, it's just a lovely story. Just that end was just great. So
Yeah.
well done.
And you did really well to create that atmosphere and like in this little
Oh,
space.
tremendous.
Very
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Can't help but smile.
I thought you were very good as a teacher as well.
Oh, I do teach performing arts. I'm very rude to my children. No, I'm not. I was going to ask more questions here, but maybe in a bit. I just kind of, on that note, wanted to maybe put it out. And as we're talking about the visuals and images, is there any images that really stuck out to people, or things that you liked, or
Feedback.
didn't quite understand? Yeah.
From one of the things that did help as well, like, can you see, as you said, picture it in your mind's eye with the visuals, in terms of just the simplicity of a black box setting as well as lighting to help suggest the mood. And I was just wondering, with the script, obviously, like within the genre of dance as well, was it quite like time consuming in terms of researching to make sure that the descriptions were quite understandable and accessible for actors and for whoever was hearing it or reading it? And was there more of a collaborative side in allowing for the actors to have more sort of free reign in terms of designing and choreographing what they were going to do, but based on the footnotes provided within the script?
I think we was very much collaborative to let you guys have play around with what you wanted and stuff to create. We sent you just score a few days ago what was been done, so then you can just have a little bit of a listen to see how it can all sound and what you work with, basically.
Yeah, because before we did, we looked at different genres of dance as well, just so we could get, instead of just looking at one, we thought if we look at loads of different ones and see, to get a really good idea of them. And then we're also talking to dancers as well, because I know before, because
you said
we picked your brain a little bit.
I said because obviously where we're not overly dancers, I know physical theatre, we know a bit about that. So I thought, from a dance perspective, how would this work as well with the music? So while I'm creating the music, I'm like, would you be able to dance to this? Can you dance to this? So it's very an open and collaborative. When choreographing it as well, we go, here's the ideas we have. What can you come up with? Or if you've got any of your own, we're very much open to collaborating with all the dancers and working with them as well.
Yeah, it's been quite nice that, for those who don't know, when you're in the industry, there's not a lot of opportunities where you can create and devise the material yourself as the actors. So thankfully with Hannah and Alex, they've sort of given me and Bryony this opportunity to become into our creative minds, actually express ourselves through our own imageries and our own thoughts process and that stuff like that. So it's been quite a unique experience and a real pleasure to actually devise something ourselves and show it to you guys, rather than being told to do this, to do that.
I liked the bit.
That will come along eventually.
Give it time, Jake, give it time.
I particularly like the bit when you're out of step with it, when there's an out of step, which, I mean, it's a long time since I was a teenager, obviously, but that feeling that you're not quite, you're not quite with the rest of the group, and that really resonated with me. You're out of step and then you become in step, and how nice that is when you feel out of step and then you find somebody who's in step with you. And I thought that was really powerful.
I was going to say about the writing, just to lead on to your questions, I thought of the fourth reason that I really liked. There might be a few more. 19, 25. But you wrote in active language, so a lot of script writers fall into very passive writing. So they'll say, so-and-so is doing something, or so-and-so, is walking down the road. Lots of things happen to characters in the writing. Really good script writing comes from dynamic active verbs. And when I read it, there wasn't a lot of she is dancing or he is walking, or it was very much quite dynamic active verbs which suit the mood of the script. And I think if you think about script to stage or script to performance, and you'll know this, Lily, if you've got a really active, fluid script and it's quite pacey, then you can put that into performance quite easily. So the writing, the reason why we like it, by the way, is because the writing's good. I would say that, but I mean the writing is really good. So that's why we can, and the acting was obviously good as well.
Thank you.
But you've got to have a good script, and that's where it starts from. You've got a good script, you can act it well, you've got the ideas, you've got the music, etc., etc. So that was really good that you had used active, fluid, and you didn't lean back on that, very passive way of presenting characters. Characters come to life because you move them forward. So that was really good. Very impressive.
We have one question there, and then we'll come to you.
Okay,
Laura,
fine.
so.
It's not really a question.
Oh,
I think like in terms of like the visualization of when you've got the dancers surrounding, like Daniela in the middle, I think it just kind of it really resonates with that internal kind of torment of not thinking you're good enough and that overwhelming sensation. And I think a lot of people, even like if you weren't a dancer, can relate to that feeling of like so many thoughts like flooding into you and like that kind of claustrophobic feeling. And almost not realising that you're in the room alone. You feel swamped by it all.
Yeah, it's funny that bit. Sometimes I get that, like where it's so much noise, but actually then you go, oh,
Yeah.
hang on,
It's
it
really,
really,
it's really well written, like you can really visualise that as well.
yeah. And then we'll come to that bit sometime. Yeah. No, go for it.
It's only just to follow on
Yeah.
to that, I think the really powerful point as well I found was when you turned around and you was in a room on your own with a mirror and there was no one else around. I thought that was a really powerful bit as well. It's really good.
I agree with Tom that the writing is excellent, but I think to myself, every scriptwriter book, you don't do that. And the whole point is, you're not supposed to say they're enjoying themselves. That's not an instruction. That should come out from the characters, not from the general description. I mean, as you say, because I've been taught, you know, if they were walking down the street, yeah, there were lots of other people around. That's it. The rest of it's up to the director and the actors.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, but the point is, what you're doing is, you do, because the oils was largely an action thing, you have to do that. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. You have to, you're filling out, which often in a normal script you don't. And I remember one of the first exercises, as I was talking to someone who teaches script, and he said, one of the first exercises I give my students is, you've got to write a Hollywood blockbuster and you've got 5 pages. Right, so, and how do you do that just by saying, they were there, they did this, and they did that? You have to fill it out with narrative, but you're not supposed to, are you?
Well, are there any rules?
Some of them don't like it.
He also is the director, I guess. So
Yeah.
that kind of writing.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. If you, that's the luxury, isn't it? Writer director, you can do it bloody right.
Yeah.